Hello everybody, welcome back to the Kash YouTube channel. I'm Bo, and on this video we're going to try something a little bit different today. If you've watched any of my videos, you probably know me as the guy who does the DIY house renovations with time lapses. I've done a lot of those videos so far, but I wanted to try something different today and provide a little more value to you, the viewer. In this video, we're going to go over the 7 steps that you can take to buy your first house to flip. I will go over each step briefly in this video, but then I plan to make a separate video for each of the steps to go over them more in detail. So if you learn anything from today's video, please make sure to stick around and check out the future videos. And if you have any questions or things that you specifically want addressed in those future videos, feel free to leave a comment below and I'll take a look at it and I'll probably include it in the next videos. And with that, let's get started with the 7 steps to buy your first house flip. Before we get started, I just wanted to say that I'm not a guru, I'm not an expert, but I have learned enough things in the past 5 years doing this myself that I think I have some valuable tips that I can pass along to you guys, and it should help you find a house easier and make less mistakes and hopefully make more money, which is the goal of flipping a house. So I'm just trying to pass along some of the stuff that I've learned. The first thing you're going to want to do is just start by doing some simple research. What kind of house are you looking for? Are you looking for a certain layout, a certain style of house? What neighborhood do you want to be in? Do you want to be in a high-end neighborhood, kind of a starter neighborhood, just a neighborhood close to where you live perhaps? Maybe that's easier for you to run the numbers on something like that. So first you want to do your research and narrow down what you are looking for specifically when you're going to buy your first house. You're going to want to start looking online at recent houses that have sold and that are currently for sale. You can obviously do that on websites such as Zillow or Realtor.com. Those are the two that I usually use. You want to use those websites to just get a feel for what things are going for, what kind of condition they're in when they sell, and what you can expect to sell yours for when you buy it, and what it'll be worth once you fix it up. Along with doing a little bit of market research, you're probably going to want to do a little bit of just general real estate investing knowledge research. 2 great things to do for that would be, first, read some books. There's a million different books on real estate. I've read a ton myself. The first one that most people read is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So probably start out there. It's a pretty broad overview of why you should be investing in real estate and how it is a good idea for you financially. Another great resource is to listen to podcasts. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of Bigger Pockets. That's where I got started 5-ish years ago. Started listening to that podcast and learned so many things and put them to the test in the real world, and they worked for me, and I think they can work for you. There's a million different podcasts to listen to, but I would start with Bigger Pockets. They have a great podcast with a lot of good actionable knowledge in there. Step number 2 is to take a look at your finances. The first thing you want to ask yourself is, are you in position to make a purchase like this? Buying a house is expensive, or can be expensive, depending on the way that you do it. You're going to need probably some money for a down payment and probably some money for the rehab budget as well. There are different ways to borrow money and get money from other people to help on your projects, so you don't necessarily need all of the money yourself, but you're probably going to want some amount of money on your own to get started. Just makes things easier, and especially if it's your first time, you probably don't want to be risking other people's money. So you're going to need to figure out how you can save up a little bit of cash or use lines of credit. You could possibly use credit cards. I don't know that I would suggest that, but it is an option that I know people have done and have had success with before. And another part with the finances that I've not heard a lot of people talk about is, are you prepared to be pretty financially responsible? Because when it comes to flipping a house, you need to know how to manage cash. You can't get a bunch of cash and then just go spend it on something that's not related to the house. You have to be pretty disciplined with your money and be able to hold on to it for a long time, because a flip's going to take you a while. It might take you a couple months to even some cases up to a year. And it ties up a lot of your cash, and you just have to be prepared to be financially responsible. Step number 3 is to start to meet with and network with professionals in the industry. The first person that I would meet with is a lender, someone that can give you the money that you're actually going to need to close on the deal. That's probably going to be a banker in most cases, but it could also be a hard money lender, a private money lender, Or if you've got a wealthy family member or friend that is interested in loaning money for a project like this, it could be someone like that too. but you're going to want to meet with someone in the lending industry and figure out what the terms are going to be and what you're going to need to find as far as a deal, and what you're going to need to show them as far as credit and your maybe your income to show that you're a responsible borrower. The next person that you might want to meet with is a realtor. Some people don't use realtors. You don't have to with Zillow and with Realtor.com. I don't believe you need to use a realtor, but it definitely can help you. I've almost always used a realtor, not necessarily to buy them, but when I sell them, I use a realtor. The main benefit, in my opinion, of having a realtor is that they have some access to some of the resources that you don't on the MLS. Not everything you see on Zillow or Realtor is going to be 100% accurate, unfortunately. That's one thing to keep an eye out for, is that on Zillow, you got to be careful. Most of the time the house prices are correct, but I've seen a lot of cases where it'll say the house sold for a certain amount of dollars, and that's just not true after I checked with my realtor. I don't know why that happens, but something to keep an eye out for, because you don't want to use Zillow and see that a house sold for $200,000 and that's what you're going to compare your house to, and turns out that's not a true number and it really only sold for $150,000, and then your numbers are going to be way off. So keep an eye out for that. Another great thing for networking with professionals is to go to a local real estate investor meetup. In most cities, depending on the size, there's probably a meetup in your town. I'm in Fargo, North Dakota, and it's a population of about 100,000 people, and there's a decent sized real estate meetup here every month, and that's one of the first places I went to get started. That's actually where I met my realtor. The good thing about going to these meetups is, first of all, you'll be able to meet some people in the industry. There'll be a lot of realtors there. They're probably there just to get clients. It is what it is. But at least you know that they are somewhat knowledgeable about investing. They're not just average home buyer real estate agents. So that's a positive. Another good thing about the meetups is you can potentially find some experienced investors that are at the meetups who've done a bunch of deals themselves. You can also find people that are have the same experience level as you. They're just getting started, and maybe they want to work with you and work together and tackle the first flip together, because a lot of times it's easier to do things with a partner for your first time than to just go solo. Step number 4 is to work on your budgeting skills. There is a lot that goes into budgeting for a house flip, and even experienced investors never get the budget right. I never do. I get close, but I've worked on them a lot. I used to budget for very large industrial projects for my engineering job, and then I've done many house budgets since then, and I still make mistakes all the time, and you forget things, and you over and underestimate all the time. So that's normal. But you're going to want to start trying to make some budgets and get a feel for how to do a budget and just know what you're looking for. One way you can do that is there's resources online. I know BiggerPockets has a budget estimator tool. I don't like it myself. I like to use my own spreadsheets that I just make on my own. So no matter how you do it, whether you use an online tool or you just make your own budgets with a spreadsheet, you just want to get some practice in. You can start by just going online to Home Depot or Lowe's or Menards or whatever retailer is closest to you that you think you'd be using. Go on their website, see what things cost. What does flooring cost per square foot? What are cabinets going to cost? What's a new shower cost? What's a door cost? All these things. What does paint cost per square foot? Unless you have experience doing some of these things, it's going to be totally foreign to you, and you'll have no idea what to expect unless you go either online or just go walk around the store and see what things cost. One fun exercise you could do to actually make your own budget without spending any money and just a little bit of your time is to just walk around whatever house you're living in or apartment that you're in right now. Just walk around, go room by room, take a tape measure, measure the floor, measure the walls, get your square footage of flooring and paint and maybe trim, doors, all those types of things that you would maybe update if they were going to do a renovation, and just make a budget for each room of your house and see what you come up with. Of course, you won't actually know if you're right or not, but you're getting the reps in of this is a bedroom with X amount of square feet. It's probably going to cost this much to redo in materials anyways, and then you'll be able to know that when you're looking at houses online or going to showings of houses that you might potentially buy. Last thing with budgeting, and I suppose this could have went into the networking category as well, but you might want to meet with some contractors around the area and see what kind of prices they're going to charge. I guess I should state that on all my houses, I've done almost all the manual labor myself to save money and because I enjoy it. So maybe the first thing you should ask yourself is, do you plan on doing the work yourself or hiring most of it done by a contractor? Because that is going to drastically change the way you can budget for your house flip. Now, even if you don't have any experience doing projects around the house, maybe a house flip sounds intimidating to you. It is. It's a lot of work. There's a lot to learn. I did it myself. I didn't have hardly any experience, and I went and bought a house that we lived in and flipped it while we lived in, and I just took my time, learned each project as we went, room by room, watched YouTube videos, went online, Google, all that stuff, and just slowly learned. None of it is rocket science. I mean, there's a lot of skill involved, but it's all things that you can learn, and it just takes a little bit of practice and a little bit of effort. But if you want to go the contractor route too, that's great. It's just going to cost you a little bit more money as you're paying for their labor, of course. So if you want to meet with contractors and maybe meet with them and walk through a house and just get a feel for what they charge for their labor, that way when you do a budget, you can budget for materials on one hand and labor on the other hand, and you should be able to get a decent number for what you're going to spend on your house flip. Step number 5 is to do what I like to call practice deals. What a practice deal is exactly what it sounds like. It's a practice deal where you're not actually buying a house or spending any money yourself. You're just looking at what other people have done and seeing what you think you would have done and if it's a good deal or a bad deal, and you can just kind of learn that way without taking any of the risk yourself. One easy way you can do some practice deals is just by going on the MLS or on Zillow and seeing houses that are recently sold or that are currently for sale. And if any of them say anything in the description like totally remodeled, recently refinished, things like that, that's a good indicator that it is a house that might have just been flipped by someone. So say you find something like that and hypothetically it's listed for $300,000, and this is where a realtor can come in handy, but you can also maybe use Zillow in some cases. You can go back and look and see what it last sold for. So maybe it sold for $200,000 a year ago, and so you know that they bought it for $200,000, and you look at all the pictures and you use your newly found budgeting skills and you estimate that they spent $50,000 to fix it up. Then you know that they spent $200,000 to buy, $50,000 to fix it up, and so they're all in for $250,000. If they sell it for $300,000, their profit would be $50,000 minus, of course, all your realtor fees. You don't really make $50,000 on that, but that would just give you a good idea of what other people are maybe getting for their house deals, and it just helps you know what to look for on your house deals and know what to expect for what can be a good deal and what isn't a good deal. This method isn't perfect because, of course, you don't really know what those people spent to fix up the house, and maybe they only make $10,000, maybe they made $80,000. You don't know unless you were able to talk to them and actually ask them yourself. And you also don't know, did they do the work themselves or did they hire everything done? There's a lot of factors that go into it, but it's a fun, easy way to just kind of get more practice deals under your belt, which just gives you more experience and more knowledge. A better way to do your practice deals would be to talk to someone that you maybe met at the real estate meetup. If you can find someone who's flipped a house or 2 or 3 or 4 in the past year or 2, they would be a great person to talk to and ask what their deals were. It seems to be the case with most real estate investors, but a lot of investors love to talk about their deals and they're eager to share all their numbers and all the pros and cons of every deal they've ever done. So don't hesitate to ask other investors what they've done and how it turned out for them and things they would have done differently or done better if they could do it again. I wouldn't really call it bragging, but a lot of real estate investors just love to talk about the deals they've done, and they're more than willing to share a lot of inside knowledge like I do in my videos myself. It's just fun to talk about. And so that's probably a better way to do practice deals, is to just talk to someone who's actually done it, and then you can get the real numbers and the real feedback on what went well for them and what didn't. Step number 6 is finding a deal. Not gonna lie, this is the hardest part. It's probably my least favorite part of the whole house flipping process. And that just because finding a deal, especially right now, it's super hard and takes a lot of time and effort, and it's just not very fun to do because you don't see much progress as you're doing it until you just get the deal and then it's over. The simplest way to find a deal, but it almost never works, and probably like 95% of cases you're not gonna get a deal this way, and that's just through the MLS and things that are for sale on the market. Especially now, where we're at in 2022, where the real estate market is just going crazy, it's even harder to find a deal on the market that's going to make sense for you to flip and make money on. But that's not to say it can't be done. The house that I'm filming in here is something that we found just a few months ago on the MLS. It had just been overpriced, and so everyone overlooked it. It needed a lot more work than what it showed on the pictures, and so we were able to get it for a lot less than what it was listed for. And so it is possible to find them on the MLS. It's hard to do, and I wouldn't put all your eggs in that basket. And don't get discouraged if you can't find anything on the MLS. The next simplest way to find a deal outside of the MLS is through a wholesaler. If you go to your real estate meetup, you're probably going to run across a wholesaler. And a wholesaler is someone who goes and finds good deals themselves, but they don't want to actually flip the houses. They'll sell the contract to another investor for slightly more than what they paid for it, and they make their money that way. So maybe they find a house for, say, $100,000, and they sell it to an investor for 110 or 115, and they just take the difference, and that's their profit, and that's their fee for finding the deal. Buying from a wholesaler isn't perfect. That's what a lot of real estate investors are doing, especially right now. So it's not like a guaranteed way to get a deal, but it's probably a better chance than finding something on the MLS. And it can be a good way, especially if you have a good network of people, or if you start making a good network of people, then you can come across more wholesalers and they can help you find a deal. The next way that you can find a deal, and this probably only works in smaller towns, but I suppose it could work anywhere, is just through word of mouth. Word of mouth could be from friends, family, a realtor, a banker, anyone that is in your network. If they just know that you're looking for a house to flip, and so you should tell everyone that you're looking for a house to flip. So if they know that you're looking for one, if they know of someone that maybe is looking to sell their house and they know the house needs a little bit of work, maybe they'll just refer them to you and save on some realtor fees, and it'll be a win-win for both parties. One of the last ways to find deals is doing mailers and door knocking. If you're not familiar with what those are, sending mailers and door knocking are kind of similar. You go around to a neighborhood that you are interested in buying in, drive around, and what you're looking for is houses that look pretty bad from the outside. Maybe their lawn hasn't been mowed in a long time. Maybe the siding is in really rough shape. Maybe they got some windows that are falling apart, things like that. Because a lot of times if the outside looks pretty bad, there's a good chance that the inside is just as bad, and that would be an ideal house to flip. So you'll drive around, you'll write down the address of all the houses that you identify as potential flips, and then you can either, for mailers, you can go back home and you write out a mailer letter that you're going to send to each of these houses. Your mailer letter can vary quite a bit, and there's a lot of good examples online of what to exactly put in them, so I would just do some research there. But basically, you're going to write something along the lines of, hey, I'm interested in buying your house. I'm not afraid of buying a house that needs a little bit of work. We can avoid realtor fees, avoid all that. Let me know if you're interested in selling, and here's my number, and hopefully they call you. But the odds are they're probably not going to call you. A lot of times you got to send out hundreds of mailers to get even a couple of responses. And even if you get a couple of responses, you're probably not going to agree on price, but it's just a volume game. If you do enough of them, you'll get enough people to call you, and eventually you'll find a deal that works for both of you and a seller, and there you have your deal. Similar to sending out mailers is door knocking. Door knocking is exactly what it sounds like. It's just like sending mailers, but if you're a little more bold, you just go right up to the house and you just knock right on the door and talk to the seller that way. Those are the methods for finding a deal that I've encountered. I'm sure there's other ways that I missed here, but you just want to probably go and do all of those methods all at once, because it's hard. You got to do something to get a deal and you don't know which one's going to work. So the shotgun approach is probably the best way to do it. Just do a little bit of everything and hopefully something will come along. Step number 7, the last step, and that is to buy your house. Once you think you found a good deal, you run your numbers and you trust your numbers. If you've done a good job of estimating your budgets and talking to other people who have done it, you should be able to get close on your numbers, and you should have trust and have faith in your numbers that they're going to be correct. And if that's the case, you really want to take action. You don't want to overanalyze things and suffer analysis paralysis. You want to actually get off your feet and make a deal and take action. So you found your deal. Next thing you do is you make an offer. When you agree on an offer, you have your financing lined up. You get that all set up, ready to go, and then you close on the deal and you buy your first house to flip. There you have it. Those are the 7 steps to buy your first house to flip. I think anyone can do all of these steps and find themselves a good deal. Finding and buying the house is only half the battle. you're still probably going to have a lot of work to do with the actual house flip, especially if you're providing the labor for the house. But in my experience, finding and buying the deal is the harder part of the two. So once you do find a house and you actually close on it, I would take a little bit of time to celebrate, because that's a big accomplishment towards your goal of flipping a house. Like I said to start the video, subscribe and follow along, as I'm going to be going over each of these steps in more detail to break them down even further, give you guys more info on what to do exactly. Please leave me your comments and questions in the comments section below. I'll look at all of them, and especially if you comment soon, I'll get to it before I shoot the next video, and then I can specifically address it in the video itself and can do whatever I can to help you guys learn all you need to know to flip your own house. Good luck and get started on these steps today.